Alright, CNT125, Network Managed Wireless Lab. We just got done looking at the SNMP protocol and saving those packets. So let's now gather our router and switch config, but we're going to do it with some style today. We're going to use a network management technique. We're going to start a TFTP server and use that to gather our configs. So here on my desktop, I have a program called TFTP D64. Let's launch that. Once we launch that, that says, where do you want to store the files? We'll just put them on the desktop so we can find them. And we're going to hit the drop-down arrow, and we're going to select our IP, 192.168.0.10. This is our VLAN 1 admin PC IP address. So now that I've launched this, this has turned this computer into a little TFTP server. It's actually going to sit here and wait for config files to come to it, and it's going to save them. So what we're going to do now is we're going to use our PuTTY and we're going to use our SSH connection to go to the router, send the config to this server, and then we're going to use our telnet connection to go to the switch and send the config to this server and save them. So I'm now going to open up I'm going to leave this handy. I'll open up a new PuTTY session here, and we're going to do SSH to the router, and my router interface 0.1, because we're on VLAN 1. That is the sub interface there. We're using SSH port 22 open. We'll accept the encryption key, log in with your username and password, enable class show run. Okay, so we're in the router. Cool beans. Well, what we're going to do now, instead of copy run start, we're going to use the command copy run TFTP. It's going to say, hey, take the running config and send it to the TFTP server. Now, just a heads up on the 4221 router, it actually wants a colon behind there. So we're going to say copy run TFTP colon. Oops. So copy the running config to a TFTP server. Hit the enter key. So we're going to say, well, what's the address? Well, it's this guy right here, 192.168.0.10. What name do you want to call it? We'll use that name. That's fine. Wireless LAN router config. That's good. Enter. We're going to watch up here. It blipped up there. And if I look on the desktop, there's now a config file here sitting here. That is the router config. I'm going to open that, but I'm going to open it with a WordPad. If I open a WordPad, I can see the whole config. There it is. There's the whole config for you. We're going to do a quick file save as a plain text file. And we'll leave the name as is. We'll just save it as a text file. Now, D2L recognizes that text file. D2L recognizes this text file, not this conf file. So we'll submit this text file. So there is my router config. Well, let's exit out of this. Let's open up PuTTY, and we're going to do telnet to the switch. 192.168.0. Whoops. Slow down your typing there, Mr. Brown. We'll do telnet 192.168.0.2. That's the address of the switch. Username Doug. Password. Enable class. We're in the switch. Okay. We're going to issue the copy run TFTP command here as well. What's the address of the host? 192.168.0.10. What's the file name? I want to use that file name right there. I'm going to hit the enter key. And I'm going to watch for it to show up here, and then a file show up on the desktop. It blipped there, showing it's doing it. There's the config. Let's open this guy with WordPad. There's our switch config. And we're now going to say file save as. We'll save it as a text file. Plain text file. Leave the name alone. And now it's readable by D2L. So we should have a text file show up over here. That's now readable by D2L. So this allows us to save our configs all in one spot. And think about the purpose of a server. Server there usually has redundant hard drives or is backed up regularly. So I have my configs. When I do a copy run start, it's saving it locally on that device. When I do a copy run TFTP, it's now saving it on a place like this server. Now the neat part about this is it's there saved as a copy. So two things. When I go to work on the router or the switch, before I configure anything, I might save a copy of the TFTP server and then work on it. If I do something wrong, I can always pull it back from the TFTP server. So if I'm trying to fix something or update something on the switch and it doesn't go well, I can fall back to this config that I've saved to the server. I can literally do, we're not going to do it in this slide, but I can do copy TFTP run. I can bring it from the server back to the switch. Okay, we're not going to do it in this lab, but I can bring it back from the TFTP server and restore a configuration. Secondly, I'm saving in a central location that's going to be backed up and saved. So I have some backup now, not just on the device itself. Not to mention, this is so much easier to deal with than copy pasting. So there is my router and switch configs for this lab. So at this point, we'll need to do some cleanup, but make sure you do have your files. I'm going to scroll down here. Make sure you have your laptop screenshot, that's your wireless connection, your access point screenshot, your SNMP captures, your two config files, and then we will have some questions. We will have some questions that we need to do. Now, cleanup for this lab, excuse me. For the access point, we'll browse back into the access point, and we're going to use the factory default command, let it reboot, then we can disconnect and put away, okay? So you can do that on your VLAN 30 PC. On the router, we need to get rid of the encryption key and then erase start reload, or erase start. And then on the switch, we need to delete the VLANs and so forth. So actually, let me do this right here. I'm going to open up my previous console. There's my router. I need to, on my router, config T. I need to do crypto key 0 eyes RSA, and I'm going to pull that encryption key off. Then I can do exit, and I can do erase start. Come on now. Erase startup config. There we go. Now there will be no config there when the next time it boots. I'm going to move into my switch now, and I will do that cleanup. So this one, remember, we do need to delete the VLANs. So enable class. We need to do delete flash :VLAN .dat. Make sure that's correct. Then we do the erase start. And then on next boot, that'll be cleared off. And again, make sure you reset the access point. Browse in, click the factory default option and restore, let it reboot, disconnect and put that away. Set your laptop back, clean up your laptop, if you will, put it back in the cabinet where it was, please, as it was, and then put your workstation back to the college network, and you should be good to go in this lab.